Hello, hello. I'm on the mic.
Hello, am I on the mic? I'm on the mic. I'm on the mic. Back on the mic. You've had enough of me already today, I'm sure. Welcome to Teams and Culture, which is powered by Women in Data. We are so proud to bring you this session, which is with our headline alliance, Capgemini. I am not going to hold things up. I'm going to hand over. You've got a lot to talk about. But please welcome Claire Williams and a brilliant panel.
Thanks, Roisin, and Team Women in Data. Here we are again. Wonderful to see such a packed room, thank you, and some friendly faces I've requested. I'm Claire Williams, I'm Vice President in the Analytics and AI space at Capgemini. I'm delighted to be back here with Women in Data. I love hiding out in there when I come to Big Data London. Today's session is going to be all about how data culture is becoming a true competitive advantage, not just for our technical teams, but across the enterprise. So I'm joined today by the experts, a brilliant, inspirational panel of leaders across some epic brands. So I'd like to introduce to you Steph Bell, who's Director of Analytics at Sainsbury's, Jordan Vaughan, who's the Global Consumer Development Product Owner at Unilever, and Richard Moule, who's the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Haleon. So we'll explore how they are embedding data into the fabric of their organisations, how they're scaling literacy, building inclusive teams, aligning that to value. So let's dive in. Jordan, I'm going to start with you. So let's start quickly in. What does a strong data culture mean to your organisation today, and how is it evolving across the functions?
Yeah, so I think what's really important for us is that we're using data, turning it into insights as a competitive advantage to win. The area that I'm in sales and marketing, we talk about the triple win, where we're wanting to win with consumers, wanting to win with brands, and wanting to win with our retailers. And if we take the right data points, it allows us to make the right decisions to help us win. I think what's really evolving in our organisation is previously you'd have specialists who would be the people who would look at the data, they would find the insights, and they would present back to the sales teams and the marketing teams. And what we're pivoting to is everyone having access to the data and the insights and not relying on other people to feed it through to them. And what's really important from our teams is that we're building the right tech to make that super easy so that it doesn't need someone who's an expert in data to take the insights and use them to win.
Love that, a triple win.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Richard, and for you, what does a strong data culture mean?
So we have a Winners One strategy, which is all about how we operate as a total organisation. And I don't think that's truer anywhere than it is in the data space. Because fundamentally, a data culture and culture in and of itself is pervasive. It should be everywhere in the organisation. And the reality is, if we're going to deliver on the benefits that our senior leaders expect from data, there has to be absolute ownership from the person who generates the first piece of data through to the person who retires at the end of its life cycle. Everybody understanding their role in that life cycle and how it all works across the organisation is absolutely critical. And I'm not saying we're 100% there, just to be clear. I'm saying that is the goal. That's where we want to get to fulfill our strategic objectives. So understanding your role and how that knock-on effect throughout the organisation is a culture, and I think that's what we're building. The other one, though, I think is very much around a common lexicon, a common language within the business. One of the things I've encountered in my career in manufacturing and in consulting is organisations that can't speak to themselves. They have no means of communication across different functions. Something as simple as, and I'm sure everybody in this room has experienced it, what is a data product? Well, you've got 50 different answers to that if you want to ask. And one of the things we're doing in terms of creating a culture is saying, actually, let's start with the nomenclature here. Let's start with the dictionary in terms of how we talk as an organisation. Because actually, if I'm asking somebody to be part of a unitary culture, that dictionary is the foundation of how we communicate across the enterprise.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. Couldn't agree more. And actually, that's one of the common principles of agile teams anyway, in terms of one common language.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Steph, for you at Sainsbury's.
Yeah, I think it is about us being able to see and have that conversation around where data and analytics is showing up around the table, where we can really influence the business strategy and have that strong and robust conversation around how data and analytics can interlock into the creation of the strategy, not just the delivery of it. And you sort of mentioned how does it look across the divisions. I think if we look across Sainsbury's, our retail teams, our store teams need us to be delivering really fast, accessible, actionable bits of metric and information. Our head office team need us to be driving the agenda. Where can we use AI? What's the thought leadership that we can be bringing into the space? So as a data analytics team, you've got to be able to flex across that really variable sort of data culture that you're trying to drive. So it's absolutely not a one-size-fits-all solution.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Steph. Richard, back to you. How do you ensure your data strategy, so Hook's really actually what Steph was saying, is tightly aligned with business outcomes across customer and consumer experience? And have you got in a moment where you've really seen this alignment and that real impact?
Sure. This may sound an odd thing to say. I don't believe in data strategies. I think there's business strategies, and data is an element of that. So that's very specifically what we've done. We've taken the commercial strategy, we translated it into a digital and technology-wide strategy, and then there is a data element to that. So it literally ladders directly up from the activities that we're undertaking directly to commercial outcomes. And what we've had to do, and I think where a lot of people in my kind of role fall down, is they try and solve everything, and they achieve nothing. And so we've been very, very selective in terms of the things that we've gone after, and effectively, if we can't see, pound signs at the end of it, we're not pursuing it. We'll get to the softer stuff later, but we need to deliver commercial return on investment from what we're doing. So as an example, we decided that we wanted a high degree of automation in our pharmacy field sales force. Bluntly, the data that was being generated by those field sales forces was terrible. And therefore we decided to go there first. We were going to fix that data, everything from CRM inputs through to photographs taken in store. That's now meant that we've reached a high degree of data quality within that area, and that means we now have something called next best action, which is effectively an in-store action guide for our sales people on the ground. So rather than it being a kind of amorphous, let's make data better, we solved two data problems, we implemented them, we delivered a Salesforce outcome, which has then seen a significant rise in sales in that channel.
Thank you, Richard. And Steph, I guess you nudged on it before, that balance in retail. I mean, retail, and particularly grocery, like the fastest industry there is. How do you balance that long-term capability growth versus the need to get those dashboards, get those KPIs, get Saturday's sales, Sundays?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge in the retail space. I think, we've got mechanisms, especially with the advent of Gen AI, that's just really changing the conversation around what self-serve data looks like and how we can just drive better enablement into the business. But then I think it comes back to that skill set in the analytics teams of that curiosity. So why is that question being asked? What does it mean? What's the business problem? And we could absolutely go all in and answer all of those questions that are flowing around, because quite often they manifest as relatively low value questions flowing into the team. We could do that and derail our roadmaps faster than the blink of an eye, or you've got the teams deploying that curiosity to figure out what is happening with the business, what's the problem that they're looking at, and really translating that into something that is that bigger bet, that bigger higher order question, and then going after that. And then we get into the pace of how do we deliver faster, how do we do the increments to mean that we can keep our eye on the value. But I think it is about just balancing the need of the business with that sort of curiosity around what the problem really is and how analytics can come to the table.
And how it's going to nudge value forward.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes total sense. And Jordan, what I'm really interested in your role is that cross-section around the intersection of digital, product, customer. What's working well for you when you're driving collaboration between those technical teams, commercial teams, sales, marketing, etc.? What's working well?
Yeah, so we've changed our structure a little bit in the past couple of years. So I'm a product owner, so everything from tech, process, people feeds under my area, which means that you can try and drive that intersection a lot better. And the bit that we've really started to focus on is the process, looking at what Richard was saying before, looking to what already exists from a sales team's business priorities or from a marketing team's priorities, and tapping into that. So if they're already doing a process where they're reviewing what they delivered to Sainsbury's in the previous month, they've already got that meeting and they're doing data manually or they're just having conversations. How can we feed data and tech into that process so they're using it live in those meetings rather than it being an afterthought, or rather than tech being focused around training people on the tech and not embedding it into the process? So that's something that's worked really well. And the other piece that's worked well is sort of expanding the skill set of the people in the roles, like what I'm doing. So I think traditionally you'd have salespeople, you'd have marketing people, and then sort of a data and tech team would be very separate to that. You wouldn't get people crossing over from departments. It would be very siloed. And someone said it in the Asda talk earlier, this tech and data is sort of seen as a bit of a scary team that you don't really interact with. So what we're trying to do is bring people from sales into tech, bring people from marketing into tech, so that they can share their experience and their skill set within that data and tech team, and they can upskill. But it also means that you've got experts within the teams to speak to. So before I did my current role as a product owner, I was in a sales role where I was selling our beauty and personal care products to Tesco. So I could take those experiences and make sure that when we're building products, in my old role, I would have utilised them and they would have given me real benefit. And as I build my team and as I recruit new people in, I'm making sure that continues. So I'm bringing people in who have got sales experience so they can continue that culture of learning and development. Because I haven't done a sales role for 3 years and things are constantly evolving, so they can't just rely on me anymore to have that experience in sales. We need to keep bringing new people in. And it's often a bit scary for someone in sales to move into a tech role. So what we're also doing is flex projects where you can spend 1 day a week working in my team. So they get the benefit of doing something new, building an AI bot, something that's a bit different to their day job, but then we can also benefit from what they're doing in their other 4 days a week, how they're speaking to customers, what are the problems that we can help them solve through tech. And I think that's really important because we've always tried to build tech based on what the customer needs and based on what the end user needs. But by the time you've got that brief, by the time you end up building it, that need might have changed. Yep. So if you've got people in roles who have done that job and have that expertise, it really helps through the product cycle.
Love that. So that cross-pollination is active.
Yes.
Really like that. So Richard, for you, what are the practical ways you've seen in terms of building that trust and that between data teams and the non-technical stakeholders?
Well, the truth is I quite often have hard conversations with my own team about what they are good at and what they're not good at. And a lot of people don't want to hear these things, but in my experience, digital and technology, this is my first IT role, for want of a better way of describing it. And prior to that, I was outside of IT, and I observed that they were not particularly good at the last mile. They were not good at the change management. They were not good at commercially landing things in the same way you're describing. And so I adopt that in my team now, which is to say, you're brilliant at many, many things. You're brilliant at build. You're brilliant at road mapping and all these kind of things. But when it comes to that specific element of landing it in an organization, let's just say we've just deployed our own marketing effectiveness capabilities. Right now, should that be deployed by a data science team? In my opinion, no. That should be deployed by an insights team because it's an insights function that ultimately is landing it and bringing it to life in the business, and therefore we create the trust by saying we will create capability, we will build it to the specifications that you have to make sure you deliver on your end goal, but you deploy it. We think you're best placed to deploy this. And the same is true for the sales teams that we work with, finance teams, and other global functions. Ultimately, we build it, they deploy it, and therefore the trust is there that it is a sort of two-way street in terms of the development and the deployment.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you. That's helpful. Knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, and what you can learn.
Yeah.
So Steph, I know with Sainsbury's, helping hands in stores a big thing at Christmas.
Yes.
How are you building that trust with your technical teams between non-technical stakeholders?
Yeah, I think so. Still closeness for us is a very big thing. Really being in that experience and drawing on that knowledge back into the team, I guess really similarly to what Jordan's talked about. I think the other thing in terms of what the teams are doing is, and we don't talk about it a huge amount anymore, but is that storytelling capability. Yes. So taking data analytics doesn't work if you try and do it to the business.
No.
You have to do it with them. So, really taking the narrative to them, speaking their language, spending the time on where their strategies are, and then looking at how you can interlock within there. That's the bit that's going to really make that difference. It's that collaboration and that partnership between the business teams, our store teams. It's the quality of the conversation that really builds that sort of virtuous circle.
I really like that. The amount of conversations I have with my teams around, you've built a dashboard. Whose life is it changing? What is the outcome of that? How many rows of data impact, commercial impact in doing that? And that's the story to tell. So Richard, back to you. Data literacy or data fluency, often cited as a barrier to all of this. Yeah. How are you scaling that across Haleon? And what does that empowerment really look like in practice?
Okay, so what are we doing? Practically, just last week, in fact, we launched our global data literacy program. As somebody who spends a lot of time with our executive team, we were very clear where we needed to start. I'm not casting aspersions, they're all very knowledgeable people, but in this particular space, it made conversations very difficult. There was friction in terms of the conversations that we were having, and therefore we decided to start at the top, and we were backing directly from the CEO. He wants us to have the most knowledgeable leadership team in the FTSE 100, and that's the sort of ambition we were set. So we're taking our HET, which is our executive team. They're spending a week at Harvard in a few weeks' time, and then they're going to go through Cambridge University as well in terms of their individual upskilling. They have the option to take that all the way through to degree if they want to, or postgraduate if they choose to, and we will then do that for all of their reports and the people below them, and then a global program below that in terms of upskilling everybody. Now, that's not a vision, that's happening. Yep. It's being deployed right now. You've been part of some of those conversations. Why are we doing all of that? I think because fundamentally, to your point, you can't do it to an organization if they don't know what this is for or why you're creating these capabilities. I've seen it time and time again. You could build the best data science capability in the world and they will not use it. Yeah. In fact, they will see it as a threat, and I think particularly with the rise of agentic specifically, but other types of AI as well, people are feeling even more threatened by these things, and actually educating them in terms of how this augments their day-to-day job, how it makes them more efficient, how it increases their delivery capacity, and that it isn't a threat to them, and they can engage with it and also iteratively build capabilities with us is absolutely critical. And that has to pervade the entire organization, otherwise a lot of the promise of all these products that we all work on will not be delivered.
Completely reinforce that, Richard. I mean, seeing the data maturity, future-focused data fluency on Brian, CEO's own scorecard, hugely powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Jordan, how's it for you in terms of data literacy working across Unilever?
I love what you're doing with Haleon. I feel like that's a great idea. Even people in my teams, actually spending some time and taking time out to really learn and expand.
You're not allowed to copy it, just to be clear.
We're friends now. We're going a little bit more simple. And I think especially in sales and marketing, as I said before, there's a bit of a thing that data's a bit scary and it's really hard to become data literate and it's too much for people's day jobs. But actually a lot of the data is really simple if you can explain it to people in an easy way. Even really complicated things like price elasticity are actually just quite simple, and once you can explain it to someone, they quite like them being able to use it and speak to a Sainsbury's and talk to them about it. So we're changing the way that we roll out tools and we do training and focusing it more around sort of workshopping sessions where we can take good case studies of where data and insights has helped land a range of you in Sainsbury's or help develop a new innovation and bringing it into sort of fun traditional sales days rather than thinking of training as being a boring data workshop. And then to go alongside that, we're working with with Google and Microsoft about building AI assistants on top of some of our tech. So rather than when I'm playing, but using a promotional optimization tool, rather than having to go and find where's the training manual to that, where's the video on how I use that, building an AI assistant on top of that tool. So I could say, hey tool, how do I change this metric, or how do I change this view to look at it from a retailer perspective? Or what does this metric, return on investment, mean? How is it being calculated live on the platform? To try and make it a little bit easier for the end user and get away from data and technology being a scary thing.
Love that. See, I always say this, dashboarding's going to be dead.
Yeah.
You'd be asking Alexa, you know. Yeah, totally. Sorry, Steph. What's your kind of view on that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because data literacy is never done. You never reach that sort of pinnacle point. And I think we've talked a lot about the training interventions that really make a difference, and that leadership down that you need to try and make sure you're harnessing. I think the other piece for me is releasing the power of the analytics teams. So every single business, every function, every team within a business is in a very different place from a data literacy. There is no sort of static answer, but they will all have a place where they have a level of understanding and where they're willing to engage with the data analytics team. So if you can integrate with them on that level, if you can tackle the questions that they are asking you, and then you can use that opportunity to just nudge the thinking, to do that through your recommendations, through the conversations that you are having, just to try and tweak and guide them to a new level. You're into this virtuous circle of better order questions, bigger questions, more valuable questions, and that is exponential growth. So the training, the top-down leadership all slot in around that, but the power of your analytical team to get in there on a day-to-day level and genuinely make a difference to the quality of the conversation that's happening around the business, not just at the top levels, but at the day-to-day execution level. Those bringing all of that together is when your data literacy really starts to kick up a gear.
Love it. Thank you, Steph. Jordan, obviously we're here with Women in Data, and we all know diversity is a huge important part around the way that we work as teams, removing bias, all those kind of things. But if we broaden out diversity, from your perspective, what does the role of diversity of background, thought, discipline play in building those high-performing data teams? And how do you foster that culture, keep it going?
Yeah, so I talked about before making sure that we've got a mix of sales teams and data teams within the teams. I think the other big thing is I look after a global product. So we create one global product for how we analyse promotions or how we analyse trade spend. And then we work with each individual country to go from a sort of 80% global product to a 20% localisation. And I would find it relatively easy to do that for the UK because I've worked as an account manager in the UK business and I shop in UK supermarkets. Would I be able to go and do that for Brazil, where the retail landscape is completely different? Not really. So what we're also trying to do is make sure that the experiences and the cultures and the backgrounds of the teams are really diverse. So my team's not huge, but I've got a team of 8, and I've got someone in Mexico, someone in India, someone in the Philippines, someone who is in the UK but used to work in Bangladesh. So making sure that you've got that range of background, which is hard, but making sure that if you do have it, even if it's in different pockets of the business, making sure that you're developing the right culture so that you're encouraging an environment of sharing and training. And we quite often do spotlights on different topics. So someone might, in a team meeting, do a 15-minute spotlight on how trade works in Bangladesh, or what's the way that you land an innovation in Mexico, so that the team is constantly learning and we're becoming truly global.
Brilliant. Love that. Global teams. So important. Steph, your teams, how's diversity playing that part?
Yeah, I mean, in a retail business, it's really important. I mean, we're partnering with WID to try and help us on the gender diversity angle, but I think in terms of the multidisciplinary nature of what we're trying to do, would we get maximum value out of an AI build if we've just locked some data scientists in a room for 6 months? No, we wouldn't. Well,
you would have the perfect algorithm, though.
We would. It would be statistically bang on. But we need to be doing is deploying. So our mix of the data science capability, the engineers, the architects, the analysts, the data visualization specialists, and the business, all spending a phenomenal amount of time together to work collectively against and towards that use case and that value. That's where we manage the adoption, where the change management goes through in the right way. And for us, it's also spending that time with stores.
Yep.
So our diversity of thinking is imperative. We are, at the end of the day, trying to deliver solutions that work for our customers, our store colleagues, and then our customers. And by our very nature, our customers are diverse.
Absolutely.
So if we've got that diverse thinking in the creation of the tools and the products that we're building, we are just nudging that value just even further. So it is absolutely critical to us being able to get the use case matched to the technical solution, used, adopted, and then into the hands of customers, and that well-oiled machine working in the way that we want it to.
Thanks, Steph. And to you, Richard.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look at this almost from the perspective of, think about it like a large language model, right? So is the underlying value in a large language model the technology, or what you personally put into it and train the model on? I would personally say generic technologies are fine, and they're a basis for what you do. But the value we create as a business is by training that globally on a global consumer basis, so that we get macro understanding of all of our consumers in every marketplace. I take the same attitude through into my team as well, which is effectively, if we want to build capabilities that, to your point, suit multiple different users and groups and perspectives, then actually a diversity in the way that people think and attitudes that they bring to the processes is absolutely critical. You want a range of opinions on anything you do. And therefore, bringing a range of people of different genders, geographies, ages, etc., to that discussion brings that diversity of thought, and therefore what you create has a better chance of being successful from the off, rather than you having to retrospectively fix something that 7 data scientists knocked together in Swindon, if you see what I mean, right? So it's there to it's a shortcut basically to better products, I think.
Yep, love it. 100%. Load data science knocked together in Swindon. That's a scary. Sorry for all the data scientists. I'll give you.
They're over here.
Yeah.
Go back to Swindon.
Done it. Yeah, absolutely. Right, I've been given the 5-minute mark, which is probably 4 minutes by now. So, final question to all three of you. Steph first. If we fast forward to 2027, what do we think will define the most successful data cultures? What should we be doing now for that to be good then?
Yeah, I think it is investing in the communication and the relationships. So if we can do that through our deliveries, but also just invest the time in that connection with the business, that connection with stakeholders, that connection with the end purpose, and you're driving that data culture conversation, that data literacy conversation, the value recognition, that investment now is going to mean that we can go faster in the future.
Awesome. Jordan?
I think we've talked about it a little bit, but making sure that leadership are on that journey and how important data and technology is in driving the overall company's ambitions and targets is really key. We've found it so much easier this year to get teams adopting and using tech, because our leadership team has shifted such a focus to it. And if we continue to do that into 2027, I think it will be much easier and much more successful landing technology, landing AI, and making sure that the teams get the most out of it.
Brilliant. Richard, what's going to be different in 2027?
What's going to be, well, first of all, I agree with the point earlier, which is upskilling never ends in this space. If anything, it's going to accelerate away from us, and people who don't keep pace will fall behind. So I think in terms of the organisations that are going to be successful, my three things are a bit boring, but they're fundamental, which is people who don't focus on their data strategy first will lose in the agentic race, because it becomes ever more important as the technology becomes more sophisticated. Lower quality data devalues it more and more and more, and what we'll see is an endless cycle of pointless pilots of people deriving no value. So fixing those foundations fundamentally by deploying an actual data-led culture, such as the one I described at the start, from R&D and factory all the way through to shelf, and people understanding their role in that the organisations that get that right will win in this space. And I think that also goes through to the technological foundations of building, planting trees will never sit under type thing, where we need to put down the foundations now from a technology and platform perspective to take advantage of that when the data quality gets to the point where it really is usable. And the organisations that don't do that and get stuck in a cycle of faddishness will fall hugely behind.
So fix the basics now.
Absolutely, fix the basics now.
Before you get too excited about the shiny things.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for a really good panel. Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you for being a really kind panel, because these things are always terrifying, well, at least for me. Really insightful discussion. I think some great themes really stood out. We need to cross-pollinate as much as we possibly can, being that business language, business lens. We need to kind of learn what we don't know, focus on what we do know, and not always try and do the things that aren't in our camp. Trust, big one. Fluency at all levels. Cross-functional teams we've mentioned. And it's apart from fixing the foundations and staying focused on the foundations, a lot of this isn't always a technical challenge. It's a cultural challenge. It's a
It is.
people challenge. And that needs to happen from the top down. So all that brings me to say is thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Team Women in Data. Love you all. Enjoy the rest of Big Data London, and thank you all so much.